Well, hello everyone. As you know, we've already made 4 videos dedicated to the topic of retirement planning or financial planning. And I had a request from one of my legions of viewers over the age of 50 that wanted me to do one more video and targeted at those people who are in their mid-50s. So as you'll recall, the first 4 videos, we looked at the Social Security system. We looked at an overall financial plan. We looked at the management of a 401k, an IRA, and we talked about management of debt. So this one is going to be not targeted at people around the age of 40, but people who are in their mid-50s. So you're much closer to that eventual retirement date in the mid-50s relative to around 40. And so some of the considerations that we'll be talking about will be a little bit different. So my thoughts are focused on someone, a married couple actually, both approximately age 55. And we're assuming again, as we did in the previous videos, that both couples work. We are not assuming necessarily that both couples make comparable pay, but simply that both couples work. So at age 55, there are some life circumstances to be taken account of. So for example, the kids, are they out of the house? Are they close to being out of the house? Is there a failure to launch? Anything like that to be considered? But in many cases at age 55, the kids either will be out of the house or very close to being out of the house. And so that circumstance where you're spending a tremendous amount of your income raising kids, getting the kids educated and so forth, is about to be historical. And although there may still be debts to be paid off relative to educating kids or other aspects of raising kids, for the most part, much more income can now be directed at getting ready for retirement. Now, I'm going to give you more or less a litany of things that I would recommend doing at age 55, just because to get ready for retirement and to project forward where you will be perhaps in about 10 years. So the assumption here will be that the intended retirement date is mid-60s, although that's not especially crucial. So first thing, project out your Social Security benefits. So again, I've given on video 1, I've given links there that will allow you to project your Social Security benefits and do this for both spouses. And do take into consideration whether the plan will be to take the Social Security benefits at the full retirement age, at an earlier date, or at age 70. So the benefits do change pretty remarkably based on whether you retire early and full retirement age or age 70. Project out those benefits for both spouses. Consider your life insurance. So this consideration comes to play primarily in thinking about, is there any, if something were to happen to both of you suddenly, unexpectedly, or one of you suddenly and unexpectedly, does that leave kids in a vulnerable situation? Does that leave the surviving spouse in a vulnerable situation? So do consider whether there is a need for life insurance, and if so, think about how that might be addressed. Now, there are many other kinds of insurance that you might think about at this point in your life as well. Primarily, I would suggest long-term care insurance is one of the possibilities you might want to consider. At age 55, this is still an affordable type of insurance. So life insurance, long-term care insurance, take a look at your needs there. Don't buy them if you don't need them. But if there is a way to work that into your plan because you have a need, then perhaps that's something to be considered. Okay, now we need to look at the 401k and the IRA. If you've got a pension plan, one or both spouses have a pension plan, need to look at those as well. So now is the time to project those balances forward. So what will the 401k and the IRA look like given your contribution rates currently and given the pension plan payout that is projected? So do project those balances forward, project forward the payout on any pension plan, and see if you are close to meeting the goals that you have set for yourself financially. Now, connected to this would be the payout options on the pension plan. So if you have a pension plan, there may be payout options that you'll want to consider. In other words, multiple payout scenarios. So for instance, many pension plans will have an option where if the pensioner dies, there can be a survivor benefit paid to the other spouse. Now, pension essentially is just like Social Security. It is a defined benefit plan. And what that and as a defined benefit plan, it will end at the death of the pensioner. So the only exception to this would be if you selected one of the options that allowed the benefit to continue on after the death of the pensioner. Now, typically, to get that option, you will be accepting a lower payout, but certainly look at that option at this time. Now, that begs another conversation, which is simply this: we have both spouses. And both spouses have some sort of an accumulation towards retirement. So they may both have pensions. They may both have 401k or IRA plans. And so now is the time to consider what happens if one spouse dies, at retirement at age 70 or at age 75 or age 80, and the other spouse continues living on. So make sure that you have carefully evaluated every scenario that involves the death of one spouse at different points in time. It's critical that, particularly if one spouse has much larger retirement benefits than the other, to consider what that other spouse will have in the way of retirement benefits should the primary earner die prematurely. So work out those kinds of scenarios to see what the surviving spouse benefits look like given a death at various ages of the other spouse. Look at the risk profiles in your 401k and your IRA plan. So if you've been around 60-40, 60% stocks, 40% bonds up to this point, age 55, then consider whether or not you need to start adjusting that. And there are a couple things I would suggest to you. So one, if you have a pension plan, in addition to a 401k or IRA, you can be a little more aggressive with the IRA or the 401k because you've got a guaranteed benefit in the pension plan. You also have a guaranteed benefit, of course, with Social Security. So if it's desirable to take a bit more risk in the 401k or the IRA, you can do that. The same logic, though, would suggest that if you want to take less risk, you could probably do it. The point being simply this: you have more choices as to the risk posture you want to take in the 401k and the IRA plan if you have underlying that both a Social Security benefit and a healthy pension benefit. So do consider whether or not a risk adjustment is necessary. If you don't have the pension plan that underlies the 401k, this may be a time that you start to back off the risk a little bit, but not much. I mean, certainly you're going to want to keep that stock to bond ratio 50-50 at the minimum, and keeping it 60-40 is probably still a very fine idea. Analyze your expenses. So this is the time to start thinking about, okay, I can project my retirement benefits forward. It's now time to also project your expenses forward to see how your benefits versus your expenses lines up. And so you will want to explicitly consider the fact that your expenses will be different in your retirement years and probably lower. So for example, we will not be paying Social Security taxes in your retirement years, so that's an expense that goes away. If your income is somewhat lower, your income taxes will also be lower. If between now and your retirement years you will have paid off your house, then the mortgage expense, the monthly mortgage payment will go away. But remember, it's just the part of the mortgage payment that goes towards interest and principal that goes away, your insurance and your property taxes will continue. But at least the principal and interest part of that payment will no longer be incurred. But do project your expenses forward, consider a little bit of inflation, and see how well your prospective benefits line up with your expenses. If there's a gap, then that's the time to consider additional contributions to the IRA or the 401k if you're able to do that. Otherwise, other possibilities mean you work a bit longer, or you consider how you can trim expenses here and there. Evaluate your inflation strategy. So in the event that you have a pension plan, and you have a 401k or IRA, you're probably going to be okay. So in terms of those investments that are sort of inflation protected, Social Security is inflation protected. So it does have a cost of living adjustment. Now it's probably less than the actual increase in the cost of living, but nevertheless it is inflation adjusted. If you have an IRA or 401k, the money's invested there will essentially be inflation protected so long as you keep a healthy percentage of your assets invested in stocks. The pension plan, make sure you understand how that works with inflation. Is the benefit inflation adjusted? For many pension plans, the answer is no. But do look into that with your own specific pension plan, and see whether or not there is an adjustment year over year over year as inflation affects the value of that payout. So being very considerate about inflation is very, very important, because otherwise the purchasing power of your benefits will erode over time, and you'll find that the same dollars that are coming in won't go as far to support your life. So look at that carefully. This is really a good time to also look at your debt. So if you've got a mortgage debt, this is a good time to project forward how you're going to pay that off. So by the time you retire, it may be a good idea to have that debt retired, simply because it's that much less cash income you need to support yourself. And you'll have less need of the interest expense deduction to save on your income taxes. And so it's simply is going to lower your cost of living to have that debt retired. So if you can, project forward strategies to pay that debt off. And lastly, I would advise you to look at your will. So the last time you prepared a will or looked at the will, it may have been the case that you were primarily worried about your dependent children. Well, if you are, as I started this video suggesting, about to be without kids in the home, or the kids have already left the home, then those kinds of provision in the will just need to be taken out and get that cleaned up. And just take another look at the will and make sure that you have provided for the surviving spouse in the instance that something happens and causes a premature death, so that the surviving spouse is adequately protected with the assets of the expired spouse. The other thing, and this is a tougher conversation, but this is a time to look at whether you have living will provisions, whether you need DNR kinds of statements in your will. So this is the time to really contemplate, the remaining years of your life, and to think about, how you want the end to go down, and what kind of control you want to put in the hands of other people, and what kind of control you want to take out of the hands of other people. So if you want DNR provisions based upon certain circumstances, this is time to not only put that into your will, but to make everybody around you aware that you put it into your will, so that it can be honored in the event that that circumstance comes to pass. All right, so I hope this has been helpful, and hopefully, you'll take this opportunity to look at your situation as you're in your mid-50s and create the rest of your plan. Thanks for watching.